Russell for mining.com.au, and I'm coming to you from the Noosa Mining Conference once again. Next to me is Simon Wensley, the CEO of Metro Mining. Simon, great to see you in person. How are you?
Good to see you, Shae.
Now, I am super excited about today's chat. Today we're going to get a little bit nerdy about bauxite. Now, last week we started talking about the outlook for aluminium overall. This week we've got a bit of show and tell, and we're going to talk about how you get this super interesting lump into, well, essentially this final product. Mate, how does it even happen?
Well, Shae, look, here's some examples of the process. So we've got bauxite here, which is the sort of granular version of that. That makes alumina in a refinery, and then it goes to the aluminium metal in a smelter. So we talked a lot about aluminium demand last time and what's driving that, the decarbonisation story, electric vehicles, batteries, as well as all of these other normal uses like, drinking bottles, and things like that. But obviously it all's got to start somewhere, and bauxite's where aluminium ore comes from.
So let's talk about your bauxite project up in Queensland, isn't it?
Correct.
So what stage of production are you at right now?
Well, we are in operations. We've been operating since 2018. Mm-hmm. So we produced last year 4.6 million tonnes. Mm-hmm. We're going through an expansion process at the moment, and so we're ramping up now with all of the expansion elements in place. We're ramping up to 7 million tonnes per annum capacity through the second half of this year.
All right, so let's talk about the future demand for bauxite. What does that look like?
So bauxite is quite ubiquitous in the world, and it's been around for a long time. But China has underpinned most of the aluminium production over the last sort of 20 years or so, and they're running out of bauxite. So they had their own bauxite supply. Mm-hmm. So over the last 10 years, they've increasingly demanded more and more bauxite. And so our project effectively is about supplying the traded market with bauxite. And as well as that top line demand growth, we've had that underlying supply reduction. And so that's what's created sort of a wedge shape. It's a bit like the iron ore story of the early 2000s, where you had steel demand growing strongly and supply starting to drop away. And that's where you saw that tremendous increase in demand and therefore pricing for bauxite. So it's a very similar story right now.
So how does the pricing the mechanism work for bauxite? Because let's be honest, like iron ore, Australians don't wake up and go, better check the bauxite price today.
No, that's right. And that's how it was with iron ore before that story too. So we're in that transition period now, and we're seeing demand growing for bauxite by double digits every year. So we saw between 2022 and 23, 13% growth, and already this year there's another 6% growth in the market this year. And so that's driving prices for bauxite since the COVID period up by about 50%. So we've seen a 50% increase in bauxite price, Australian bauxite price, in that time.
Let's talk a little bit about the long-term fundamentals. Let's be honest, bauxite mines don't happen overnight, and as you just pointed out, you're going to be doubling production. What does this supply-demand gap look like for bauxite over the next 5 to 10 years?
So consultants that specialise in this area suggesting that demand is going to continue to be there. So we're going to still see growth of maybe sort of 40 or 50 million tonnes of bauxite over the next sort of 5 years or so. And so that will continue to drive that demand. We are seeing, not a great deal of growth out of Australia. We're obviously growing our production, but other mines in Australia are ramping down. They're getting exhausted at this point. So we're seeing other countries come in. So West Africa has been a strong growth in this sector over the last 10 or 15 years, particularly out of Guinea. So but they're a long way away from this Asia-Pacific market. Yes. So from our point of view, what we see there is the cost of producing that bauxite plus the transportation costs to China and Asia-Pacific generally are significantly higher than what we can do. So that's driving the price up. And at the same time, with our expansion, our costs are coming down. So from that perspective, our margins we see over the next couple of years should rise significantly.
Well, just focusing on your project for a second as well. Obviously, you're located in Queensland, so there's that access to the Asian markets, but also you're surrounded by excellent established mining infrastructure as well. And I'm guessing not too far from a port either, which is super important when it comes to this product.
That's right. So, we are in a very tip of North Queensland. So it's a very well-known bauxite producing area. Camalco, which became Rio Tinto, has been producing bauxite off this bauxite plateau for about 60 years. So It's a very well-known product. We're on the northern side of Weipa, about 100 k's north of Weipa. We don't have a full-on loading port. We have what we call a river or a barging port. So we put our products onto barges, and then we tow those out into the ocean about 20 kilometers offshore, and then we use the transhippers to take the bauxite from those barges and load into very large ocean-going vessels. So that's our model. It's a model that's used in different parts of the world, quite successfully. So it's a bit unique to Australia. There aren't many operations like that in Australia, but it's a model that's certainly used a lot elsewhere in the world.
It sounds very efficient, also a low capital expenditure on your end, which is very savvy. Listen, Simon, thank you. I didn't know that. Love learning these new things about the mining industry. Thank you so much for being here today, and love the fact that you brought some bauxite out to play.
Pleasure. Thanks very much for your time.